we need more sham data. Oz, you get yes. Sid, you get no. This was going to come, right? So,
Sid, if you say no, I'm going to start crying, man. I spent the last 3 years of my life trying to.
Oh man, I don't want to leave this on a bad note for you. You should have asked this first, Kavi, not last. Now Oz is never going to talk to me again after this question. All right, go ahead.
All right. So I think it goes back to probably what we were talking about before. Nobody cares what we think we need more of. I think what we need to care about is what do non-procedural physicians want to see. And I think the reality is that's what they need to see is sham data to help validate and incorporate this into treatment guidelines in the United States. And so until we get into treatment guidelines, I think every type of study is needed. Doesn't mean not just sham, but I think sham is a very important component of helping to validate this. And so that's obviously why, I have gone down this NIH path, and we are hoping to start imminently soon with our pilot sham study, at least.
The fact that you can get that off the ground is commendable because, it really is remarkable for anyone who's not tried this, the number of barriers you must have faced to get this off the ground. I can't imagine. I'm surprised you haven't lost all your hair like me.
I still haven't gotten fully through it, just FYI. But
yes, you're in the home stretch. So I really commend you for that. And I hope it's, a huge breakthrough to do this. I think there's a couple of challenges. Number one, it's hard to enroll patients on a sham trial. Okay. So that's just reality, especially in America. We talked about, Kavi, you alluded to OBLs and stuff like that, right? So if they have access to this procedure, what is the incentive for them to be on a sham? So that's I think, the biggest thing. But the other big thing is, while I agree that we have to convince others and this is what they want, just remember that 90% of medicine is not sham-based. We always think, oh, well, you need a sham, and oncologists say that, and because they do placebo-based trials, and rheumatologists want sham. But appendectomy for appendicitis doesn't have a sham study. Liver transplant doesn't have a sham study. Using seatbelts in your car does not have a sham study, right? Which is probably the most life-saving thing we do, right? So 95% of things in medicine are not controlled by sham. It's hard to almost think of any surgery that is sham, that has a sham component to it, right? And so while you're right, I would say this is more akin to total knee arthroplasty, which is the standard of care and does have statistical and clinical benefit that is proven in randomized trials over just standard of care. And that standard of care arm was not sham. They didn't do, for example, like an incision down the knee and then close the incision as kind of a sham TKA, right? So I hope, and I don't know this, but I hope that if these RCTs eventually are positive, that is enough to convince the doubters, because I think doing sham, that's ideal. What you're doing is the gold standard and it's ideal, but it is, in my opinion, it's a huge burden and it's a huge hill to climb.
Yeah, and I appreciate your comments, because I wish what you said is true, and I hope it is. I can just only tell you anecdotally. Obviously, first of all, I think, as we've talked about, OA is fraught with placebo effects, treatments for it. I probably do think that this is more like a, steroid injection than it is a knee replacement. So maybe that's where we fundamentally probably might differ on opinion. I can just tell you anecdotally, at least, I have one of my orthopedic colleagues is connected to the clinical practice guidelines for ortho. So she introduced me to the two people who write their guidelines. I said, hey, I'm big on GAE, this is a new treatment. They had never heard of it. And they essentially replied almost verbatim and said, do not email me again until you have sham data related to this intervention. That's the only way we would even consider, providing recommendations. So again, I think it goes to what these other people want. And like you said, I hope what you're saying is right. I hope that we don't need a sham trial, but I think there's a strong desire for it. But maybe the RCT data that we do generate is hopefully compelling enough to sort of get them to sort of admit to doing it. I guess.
I'll remind people that there are 2 well-done RCTs right now, and they're both negative. So, yeah. We're kind of, already in a hole, right? Right. 2 randomized trials, both are negative. So that's a problem.
Well, and there we go. That's ending on a high note. That was probably the first real but nice disagreement between the two of you in the whole session. So